Now, you've used the word feminist a couple of times, and that's the title of your new book, which is Feminist Witchcraft. For the benefit of anyone that doesn't know, how would you define feminist witchcraft?
That's a great question, because the word feminist has about 1,000 different definitions, and some of them are great and some of them are not. To take a feminist lens means that we recognize, one, that the world is interlocking and complex. But if we want to sort of have a social analysis, we generally had to pick a lens to come through. And for me to be a feminist is that I approach things from a lens that's about gender first, and then looks to see how gender is intertwined with everything else. And for me too, that means really problematizing the idea of gender, that it's not just women and men, although that came later. That was definitely when I first started. We were talking about women and men. We weren't talking about trans folks. We weren't talking about any of that in mainstream culture, and I've had to evolve around that. So for me, feminist witchcraft is a witchcraft that places the experiences of really anybody who's not men at the center, and although men can be feminist witches too, but looks at the way in which that particular sort of cultural complex has been used, in particular alongside the kind of exploitation of the earth, and that within the sort of liberation of women and other marginalized genders, that is tied up with kind of a different way of how we live upon this planet and how we treat each other, how we treat the earth, how we treat the animals. So it's this sort of idea that not to sort of be very simplistic, but that the way that we treat this planet and the way that we treat women and they mirror each other. And we have to, if we want to have a better way, a more sustainable way of living for just everything that lives on this planet, we have to address both those things. And the other sort of piece that drew me to feminist witchcraft and where it fits into my definition is that it is a practice that it is about political change in the world, and it's also about healing the wounds of patriarchy and using witchcraft for that. What was so powerful about the first women's circles I went to in some goddess craft, or what we euphemistically called women's spirituality back in those days in the U.S., was circles of women talking about things that we're not supposed to talk about. And now I know, now they're an extension of sort of secular feminist consciousness raising in the 70s. But these were women who were using witchcraft and herbs and energy and all that to heal things like, the injuries of sexual violence, the injuries of sexism. I've since been in circles where we talk about, using craft to heal the ancestral and current wounds of racism for folks of color that experience that. The idea that these tools could be used to help heal real world problems. And then as more healed people, we go out to try to work to make the world better. And I loved that sort of dance between public and private, and the willingness to pull things out of the shadows in a very intentional way. I think any witchcraft circle could do those things if they wanted to, but for feminist witchcraft, that is a huge piece of what we do. And if you go and you get any of the kind of classic, women's or feminist spell books, right alongside what you would expect, you find spell work or healing work for these things that patriarchy does to us, and the kind of recognition that witchcraft is one way of taking your power back. And it's been a access to power for women and other people that aren't cisgendered and heterosexual men for a long time. And that's why the word witch was weaponized. They don't want us telling our stories. They don't want us being powerful. And when we are able to step like into our power, and especially collectively, we have the ability to shift a lot of things. So nice, simple definition. Just put it on a magnet.
I think witchcraft is life-changing, isn't it? It is.
Totally.
Yeah, absolutely.